No, I'm not dead, so you can quit joking about that. I was actually reading People of the Wolf, the thing that Clan of the Cave Bear should have been.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So this book, I've been interested in it for a while, because I believe back in the Clan of the Cave Bear review, I mentioned that I've just been interested in prehistoric, human sort of historical fiction stuff. But Clan of the Cave Bear really disappointed me, despite the really neat setting and the possibility that it could have been great. Whereas People of the Wolf, this is pretty much exactly what I was expecting, and I was very satisfied with it. This story has adventure, it has betrayal, and love, and romance, and just all the stuff you want in an epic story. And despite a couple of shortcomings, it was really, really good overall. The summary for this book is a little bit misleading. It says that it's about the first people that came to North America from Siberia, like, I believe it was around 12 or 15,000 years ago that the book takes place. And from the summary, you would assume that that would be the majority of the story. It would just be them on their journey into the New World and then trying to figure out what to do when they're in the New World. But it's not quite that. I think around 96% of the story is just in Siberia, with them doing things and explaining exactly why they want to go to North America. And that's not bad at all, I don't think. I quite liked the Siberian story, but just keep in mind that the summary is misleading in that regard. This book also doesn't really have a main character either. Like, at first I thought it was going to be Runs in Light, because the story starts off with him, and he kills a wolf, and then he has a vision of being able to take his people across the ice into a new land. And as time goes on, he takes up less and less of the story, until by the end he's barely there at all. So he's not the main character, and this book doesn't really have one either. But it does have several major characters, which are all actually pretty good, even if they have weird names. In fact, that was one thing that annoyed me about this book, is that the characters have names like Runs in Light, he later becomes Wolf Dreamer, but then there's also Singing Wolf, and One Who Cries, and Broken Branch, and it just gets a little bit confusing when you're reading it. But for the most part, it was fine. So, main characters, we've got Runs in Light, who later becomes Wolf Dreamer. And I did quite like him, but again, he wasn't in it a whole lot. He was just a dude who wanted to do everything in his power to make life better for his people, and okay, I can respect that. Then there was his twin brother, Ravenhunter, who, I gotta say, is probably the best character in this book. I'm not sure if I'd say he's my favorite, but he's definitely the best, because, without spoiling anything, I will say he has a really interesting character arc, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, he thinks that the elders of his people and his brother are sort of cowardly, and their ways are going to get them all killed. So he comes up with new ways of doing things, and he tries to lead the people into just a different way of living, and it makes sense why he would do that. And everything from then on, even if you don't agree with it, it makes sense why he would take those sorts of actions, and why he would become the sort of person that he does. So he's actually quite interesting. And then there's Dancing Fox, who is Runs in Light's sort of girlfriend, and Ravenhunter also wants her. And while I did really like her, a lot of the good stuff with her was kind of off-screen. So that was a little disappointing, because near the beginning she actually gets exiled, or not exactly exiled, but I forget the term they use, but they essentially halfway kick her out of the clan, so she just sort of has to follow along with them and live off their scraps. But then she later learns to hunt on her own, and she becomes self-sufficient, and then she also becomes a leader among them. And again, a lot of that happens off-screen, but just seeing her transform from this basically no one into a very powerful, independent woman is actually, it's quite good. And then there is also Icefire, who is Ravenhunter and Runs and Light's father, and I think the less I say about him, the better, because while he is quite good, I don't want to spoil anything. And so those are the main characters. There are some other ones who are all, they're likable. You know, they have their own personality traits, and even though their names are hard to keep track of, they're fine. You know, I like them enough. The main thing that did bother me a little bit, though, is that none of them really have physical descriptions. So, I mean, I still don't really know exactly what Runs and Light looks like, or what any of the others look like. I just, meh. But, you know, that's not a huge deal. The story is quite good, too, because, like I said, from the summary, it's a lot different than what I expected it to be, but it's not bad by any means whatsoever. So, at the beginning of the book, it's winter time, and all of the people, which I should mention that the main tribe that most of the characters are from, they just refer to themselves as the people, and the other tribe, they call themselves the Mammoth people, but the people refer to them as the others. So it's a little weird when talking about it, because they don't have a real name. So the people are, like, starving to death in winter, and many people have already died. Those that haven't died are really weak from hunger, and Runs and Light goes outside and he finds a wolf, and he manages to kill it and bring it back. But before he brings it back to the people, he has a vision of them leaving that place and going to North America. And that causes some friction between him and the shaman of their band, basically. I don't think they actually ever give him a real title. He's basically just a shaman. And that causes tension between him and Runs and Light, and so the band splits in half, and they eventually do come back together, but, you know, one half leaves to try and find another place to stay in Siberia still, and the other half leaves to try and go to North America. And from there, other things happen. You know, Runs and Light starts finding out more about his powers, about how he can become what's called a dreamer, and they never go into a whole lot of detail about that, but it seems like it's someone who can see the past, the present, and the future all over the place. And then his brother starts hyping up other people to go fight the others and try and take some of their land back. Icefire is doing his thing. Dancing Fox becomes an independent person. It's not very cohesive, I guess I should say, but it never really bothered me while I was reading it. You know, there's different story threads which are all pretty good. The main thing I'd say about this is that while there were things that happened off screen which kind of annoyed me, I do think that this could have been shorter. I feel like it could have shaved off around 50 or 60 pages at least. Because there's bits around the 1/3 mark and the 1/2 mark which just feel like filler. But, again, it never bothered me too much. I should also say that the ending, I didn't expect the ending at all. I mean, there were multiple points in this book where I was thinking, oh, okay, it's going to end like this. And then it went a different direction, so I thought, oh, okay, it's going to end like that instead. But then it was something totally different. Like, it really did take me by surprise. I was very rarely able to guess what was going to happen next in this book, and I thought that was quite impressive, really. One last thing that I feel I should mention is that the violence in this book is really extreme at times. There's not a lot of it, but what's there is really, really extreme. Like, if any of you have seen my Empire of the Summer Moon review, that was a book about the Comanche people, and the Comanches were particularly brutal in their warfare, partially because they were nomadic hunters. And if you look at other Native American tribes like the Sioux and the Apache, it was pretty similar. And so it makes sense, because they needed to just tell people, stay off our territory and don't fuck with us. And the people of the Wolf are pretty much in the same position. You can't really say that they're bad people for doing the things that they do, because they torture and mutilate people a lot, and you can't really put modern morality onto that. But if you're squeamish, it would bother you, yeah. Like, there's a lot of physical violence, and there's also a lot of rape in there, too. So, if that sort of thing bothers you, I'd stay away from it. So yeah, that's really all there is to say. I mean, this book didn't have a whole lot of problems, but what was there wasn't perfect either. It was just a really good story, and I know that there's like 24 books in this series. I don't know if I would read all of them, but there are 2 or 3 others which kind of interest me, so I might check those out at some point. So if you just like regular adventure books, then go ahead and check this one out. You know, if anything that takes place in prehistory interests you, then the setting for this will probably be really cool to you. But I enjoyed it, and hopefully you will too. So apparently I'm just supposed to say, like, subscribe and shit, and then just wait a couple of seconds, so I guess I'll do that. Has it been long enough?